you're new to human hair toppers or wigs and you have decided to make your first purchase, or you've already made your first purchase, congratulations. It's a very exciting time, and for me, it completely changed my life. But one of the things that came to my mind a little while after I made my purchase was, how do I care for this thing and how do I make sure that it lasts me for a long time? Because for me, it was an investment, and I didn't even consider this. I completely overlooked this part of the process when I first made my purchase, and I made a mistake that kind of limited the lifespan of my first topper, and that is with regards to oxidation. So when you have a human hair piece, unless it is virgin hair, it has gone through a coloring process, and that process leads it to turn brassy over time. So inevitably, just like with bio hair that's been dyed, it's going to need a touch up. Now, silly me, in my head, I just thought, well, it's not going to be growing out of my head, so it will never need a root touch up. No, it doesn't need a root touch up, but the brassiness will set in eventually, and that needs to be taken care of. So silly me, my first Highline piece, I left it in my closet on a wig stand in the sunlight. It was COVID. I wasn't wearing my piece every day, and it did get a lot of sun exposure. I was also really guilty of going outside when we did resume going back to the workplace. I'm a high school teacher, and the kids would be like, can we go outside and read in the sun? And I said, sure. And I was so excited to do it because for the first time in my life, I didn't think my scalp would burn, or I knew my scalp wouldn't burn because I was wearing a topper. All the while I was causing the piece to turn brassy. So with that, let's just get into my top tips and tricks to extend the lifetime of your piece in terms of its color. So if you have a silk top piece, it'll last for years, but the color will need a touch up before the actual piece expires, before it starts to fall apart. So what I try to do is make my pieces last about a year. That's sort of my goal with every day. Where can I get them to last a year before they need a color job? And so far so good. That has been the case. You may be able to go longer if you don't wear the piece every day, or depending on what you're doing with your topper and what you're doing in your topper, that period could be shortened. So tips and tricks. Tip number one is stay out of the sun. So don't store your piece somewhere where there is sun exposure. Try to keep it perhaps in the original packaging in a box somewhere where it is dark. That's rule number one. If you do spend a lot of time outside, and inevitably you can't be inside all the time in your piece, just be conscious of it. So consider wearing a hat, or consider having an alternate piece that you can wear if you're going to be outside a lot. The odd patio sit is not going to ruin your piece, but you do not want to be doing that repeatedly with something that is, for many of us, an investment. So one of the things you can do is get yourself a cheaper alternative piece. Purchase something that is lightly used that you can wear on those days, or if you're feeling really fun, you can go out and get yourself a synthetic, because these synthetic fibers will never change color in the sun. So they're pretty awesome for that. So rule number one, stay out of the sun. With the elements, stay also out of those chlorine pools and salt water. Those are not going to be friendly to your hair. They are going to be rough on your hair and cause the color to be stripped. So be careful as well with that. If you live in an area that has high concentrations of chlorine in your city water, you can buy a filter just on Amazon and you put it on your shower head. That will help to filter the water that way. I live in a rural area, so we actually have hard water. Unless I have a water softener, there's not much that I can do about that. So I actually purchased filtered water to wash my pieces, and that has been working out for me not too badly, because hard water will also damage your hair and can not only make the texture kind of icky, but it can also strip the color over time. So number one, stay out of the sun. Number two, watch that chlorine, the hard water, all of those types of elements. One of the things that helps me is also avoiding washing my hair as much as possible, because that just means more exposure to washing. Washing is going to strip the hair color just like it does with bio hair. So you want to limit the washing as much as possible. Try to wear your hair only when necessary, especially if it's a more luxury piece, and wash in lukewarm water, not hot water, making sure that you're using products that are safe for your piece, that are free of sulfates and parabens. So try to avoid overwashing, avoid the chlorine, avoid the sun exposure. The chemicals that you put in and the products that you put into your hair make a difference as well. So This hair, it doesn't have natural oils in it. You're gonna have to add oil. So I add oils a couple times a week, and that has helped tremendously. One of my favorites is actually The Ordinary's Marula oil. You can use that. I also sometimes use Moroccan oil. That works for me. Just also be careful that you're putting oil on at the end of the day, not just before heat styling, because you're gonna fry the hair. So adding oil will help to keep it shiny and healthy and keep the moisture in, therefore maintaining the color. Too much buildup can be bad though. So you want to be, using these not too liberally. Okay, the next thing to consider is the overuse of styling products. So styling products will strip the color from your hair. You're gonna wanna be careful about that. So the nice thing about not washing your topper or your wig too often is that you won't be styling it as much, hopefully. So if I'm gonna style it, I'm styling it, I'm putting the curls in, and then I'm letting it be until those curls are completely gone. Same thing if I flat iron. I wanna limit the intensity of the heat and the time that I spend heating my piece. So if I wash it less frequently, then I'm also going to be heat styling it less frequently. So the fewer times that I do that in a year, the more or the less damage is done to the actual shaft of the hair, and the longer that I'm able to maintain the color. So be wary of that when you are using heat styling products. Just do it carefully and cautiously. So those are some of my tips and tricks. I have a few more on my Instagram page. I've got a carousel through there that can help guide you as well. At the end of the day, as I said, it's inevitable. If it's a dyed piece, it's going to need a touch up at some point. I just thought of another thing that I forgot to mention. When you're washing your hair, in addition to finding a shampoo that is free of sulfates and parabens, you might also want to consider using one of those purple shampoos or blue shampoos, depending on the color of your piece, to combat the brassiness, but also just to prevent it in the first place. So maybe take some consideration into that. You can always talk to the company you've purchased your piece from to see what they recommend, but from the first wash onwards, you want to make sure that you're really taking care of your piece in those washing phases and that you're deep conditioning every time that you wash as well. So yeah, inevitably this is something that's going to have to be done, and you can always get a touch-up done by your stylist. Oftentimes also the company, the seller that you've purchased the piece from, will offer that option to you as well. So you might want to ask them about that in terms of whether they offer that service or whom they might recommend to you. So you might be curious to know, what does a brassy piece look like? And I guess I probably should have started with that, but this is the topper that I talked about. The one that I left in the closet. I wore it outside all the time. So this is a Lexi 4 Root from Highline, and I'm going to send her in to get touched up so that I can start wearing her again. Contrast her with a Lexi that has never seen the sun. You can see the difference there at the root. And it's very clear. This one looks fine on its own, but once you compare her, or contrast her, I guess, with a newer Lexi, you can see these are supposed to be the same color, and they are no longer the same color. So this one is lacking dimension, and it's turned sort of like an orangey color. It's not as bad as it could be, but it's definitely in need of a touch-up to bring out that brassiness, get rid of the brassiness, and throw in some more of those ashy tones. So this piece, despite the fact that it was worn every day for a year, still has lots of wear in it. The hair is pretty much undamaged, actually. I don't even see any split ends in here. So really, I don't even think she's going to need a trim. I think all she's going to need is a nice hair coloring, and she'll be ready to go again for a whole second year of wear, which is really fantastic. So take care of those pieces. Make sure you're using products that are safe for color treated hair. Stay out of the sun, find yourself a cheap alternative piece, and good luck. If there's anything that I've missed, any tips or tricks that you use as well to extend the lifespan of your coloring jobs, please drop them in the comments for others to see. Really want to build up community here and make it a place where we can share tips and tricks that we'll actually use. Thanks so much for being here.